How to quit an online gaming addiction. Just like any other addiction, this is a multifaceted approach. It's not as simple as just suddenly stopping, because with time there's going to be triggers and stresses, and a person tends to fall to their own old routines and resumes, whether it's gaming or drug use or alcohol, whatever. People have to learn new behaviors to undo the behaviors that lead to the addiction in the first place. So with online gaming, I think in the beginning it's best to wean down. So have some strict time limits and slowly reduce the amount of time over a gradual period of gaming that's allowed. Whether it's a verbal contract to them or a contract to yourself, it's best to include other people in this, because there's a lot of isolationism that goes on with gaming and other addictions, and it's better to include loved ones in the decision-making process and being able to feed back to them what's going on in your life. It's not just if you're struggling, it's when you're going to struggle. And learning how to be open with others is a very important part of recovery. Substitution of gaming with healthy alternatives. This is very important as well. Getting back to the simple things in life, not being online, by going out for walks, getting involved in the community, volunteer work, recreational activities, physical activities, hobbies. This is important so that a person learns to have some fun in life, but not relying on their crutch. Reading about things, journaling about life events can be helpful as well. The next thing to do is to deal with triggers, the reasons that lead to a person using or gaming in the first place, and this can be avoided as simple as hanging out with other people who are gamers. Can be an influence negatively, and a person can go back to their old ways of gaming again or using. And in this situation, it's best to avoid in the first place. The next step is to deal with the triggers itself, and I want to assure people that it's tough in the beginning, whether it's alcohol, drug, or gaming addiction. It takes time to deal with the triggers and the urges or cravings, but the good news is it gets better, it becomes less severe over time and less frequent over time. Once a person gets used to dealing with the triggers and it becomes second nature to say no and then to engage in a more constructive activity and to just buy the time for this trigger to go away. Typically it's only a minute anyway. Then they've learned some skills, and it takes all this effort pays off over the long run. Minimizing stressors in life as well. So this is universal amongst all addictions. Most people tend to use or game because of stresses going on in their life. So coping with stress in a better way takes a lot of effort and practice, but for me, personally, I've learned in my recovery to break down stresses into things that I can and cannot control. Things that I can control, well, there's no sense in worrying about them, so try to dismiss them as much as possible. Sure, they're going to pop up in my mind, especially when I'm trying to get to sleep at night, but if I control the amount of time that I'm allowing myself to worry, then it makes it a lot easier. So at worst, I'll give myself 15 minutes a day to worry, and then next time my mind bounces back to this and it goes in my mind again, these are the things that keep me up at night, that I have to tell myself to redirect my thinking. This is called cognitive behavioral therapy. So recognizing that there's a trigger there, recognizing there's a stress, that it keeps entering my mind, and learning how to dismiss it and think about something positive, substitute it with something else. It takes practice, but this is a great way of dealing with life stresses. As I said before, learning to speak about things, being open. We tend to hide our addictions, and that is very unhelpful, whereas recovery is about being connected and sharing with others. So being able to talk about my problems with my family, my loved ones, at a 12-step group or a gaming group, for example. People who are going through similar problems, and just expressing myself what I'm going through, because chances are other people are going through the same problems too, and that's helpful to both of you, so you mutually benefit from this. So being, again, connected with other people is a super important part of recovery. So that summarizes it. So to help treat a online gaming addiction is at first to start weaning down, to have a strict time criteria where you're allowed to game, and slowly reduce that time to the point where it's either manageable or completely stop altogether, and to substitute it with healthy alternatives in your lifestyle. Dealing with triggers and recognizing the triggers and avoiding them as much as possible, but then learning how to cope with triggers and just letting them pass is very helpful. And finally, learning how to deal with the stresses in life, things that lead to using or gaming. It's used as a form of escapism a lot of times, and getting out of that isolation is very important. Getting out of the old ways of thinking by rewarding myself or disappearing because I'm under a lot of stress, and for me I use it as a stress reliever, for example. With gaming isn't a bad idea. So learning how to cope with life stresses, breaking it down into things that are manageable versus things that cannot be controlled, dismissing the latter, and being able to open up and talk about it with a loved one and with family and in a self-help group. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it in the comments box below.